Friends, a wise man once said, "You cannot solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solutions." Think about it, it's a very simple statement but a profound meaning. In today's video, I'm going to tell you how we are all victims of our preconditioned mindsets. Hello everyone, welcome to CSK Speaks. I am CSK, your personal coach, and you're watching me on my channel, CSK Speaks. Yesterday's solutions are a no fit for tomorrow's problems. Now that sounds very simplistic, isn't it? There's no rocket science towards it. But if you think deeply, how many of us, how often we are all victims of our preconditioned mindset. In fact, whenever I do videos, some people ask me, why are you doing these videos? The answer is, these videos are constant reminders to my future self. Because every single time I want to go back and kind of get inspired, listen to some tidbits of relevant information, I click on these videos. These are my notes. These are my ready references. And if they can be of the same use to you, I'll be absolutely thrilled. Now, coming back to today's video, we cannot solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solutions. And enough and more has been said about the constant changing trends around us, the advent of technology, and the way things are changing so quick and so fast, and we cannot wrap our head around it, isn't it? You name any sector, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is business, whether it is the way we connect and socialize with people, the way we learn and unlearn things, the way we invest our money and manage our money, everything, including our health, everything is now changing and changing at very quick pace. But are we changing enough? Are we reinventing ourselves? That's the question which brought me to this particular video. Now, to make you understand this, although the statement is quite simple, we need to go back to one old historic story. Now, I think many of you have heard this through your grandparents. If you have, pause the video right now and give me a yes. Comment yes, you have heard this particular video. Okay, but you want to know what is that particular story, right? The story is about the cap seller and the monkey. Now you got the story. If you have heard this before, pause it and then type yes. Alright, now that you have done that, let's get on with the story. Now there was a cap seller, and this cap seller was going from town to town, village to village, doing his work, which was to sell caps. The story goes like this. One fine afternoon, it was a very hot day, so he decides after a good meal to take some rest. So he goes under a nice banyan tree, spends some time relaxing, and then he decides to catch an afternoon siesta, a nap, a quick nap. So he lies down and relaxes, and maybe after 15-20 minutes of a quick nap, he wakes up, but only to see that his bag, which was carrying caps, was empty. All the caps had disappeared. He didn't know what to do. He just looked around because when he slept, absolutely it was a safe place. But suddenly, there is a basket which is empty and all the caps have disappeared. After a few minutes of looking here and there, he listens to the noise of the monkeys. Now he looks up, and when he looks up, he sees a bunch of monkeys using his caps. They are all having the caps. In fact, they have put them on and they are looking down, laughing at him and teasing him. Cap seller didn't know what to do. He started to kind of jump and try to scare away the monkeys. But that's all in vain. Finally, cap seller kept his hand on his head and started scratching, thinking he did a mistake to take rest under that particular tree. Now that time, one of the monkeys started imitating the capsella. They also started keeping the hand on their head and they were trying to rub their hand on their tiny little heads. Now, capsella got a cue. He had one cap which he kept under his head when he was sleeping. He pulled it right away, kept it on his head, and then he started playing fool with monkeys. Because he knew that the monkeys are imitating him and his actions. So he started jumping or kind of scratching his hand and scratching his face and all that. And the monkey started imitating the capsella. Now, before they realized, capsella got them in his trap. What he did, as all of you know by now, he removed his cap, the single cap which he had, okay, and scratched his head with the other hand. And then out of frustration, he just threw the cap down and stamped on the floor. And when he did that, monkeys were so much involved in that imitation game, they just removed the cap and threw it down. And quickly, the capsular gathered all of them, put them in the bag, and ran away. Now, that was a wise capsular, isn't it? Fast forward 25 years. That was the first version of the story which my grandparents told me. Now, 25 years later, my parents told me another story of the same capsular, but this time his son. And his son, because the capsular had been successful and he was kind of very, very prosperous in that business of selling caps, his son took to the same profession or business. Now, this time, this son had diversified into hats. You know, those round hats which are fashionable. So he was going around doing his business of selling hats. Same thing repeats. I don't want to repeat the story here, but same thing repeats. One more time, he decides that he will take rest. He will go to the tree and sit down and take an afternoon nap. Not the same tree, mind you, but some other tree in some other village. And when he is down, he does the same mistake. He knew the story. His father had already told him. But then this time what happened? He just decides that it's not going to happen with him. And he does the same thing. He sleeps, leaving his bag next to him. And by the time he wakes up, the monkeys have gathered around, taken away all the hats, and they've gone up. Now, this is no rocket science. The son, thinking intelligent, he repeats what his father had done 25 years ago. He lets the monkey get into the trap of the imitation game. And finally, when he wants to make that killer move, he removes his hat, scratches his head, and throws it down. But this time, one monkey slowly crawls down, picks up that hat, and goes back. And now all the monkeys on the tree is laughing and teasing this new hat seller. This man is clueless. He's now scratching his head with both his hands, wondering what went wrong. And then one monkey whispers or screams, "Do you think only your father told you the story? Even we learn from our mistakes and our parents have also told the story." That is the newer version of the hat seller and the monkey. I'm sure some of you must even have heard this particular story as well, the improvised version. But the message out of this story, as I said at the beginning, is you cannot solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's solutions. But even after knowing that, we all get played. Like that hat seller, where he thought somehow, for some good reason, that he will not be the victim. And that's what gave him the confidence and the courage to just go about relaxing under the tree, in spite of well knowing that that history can repeat with him. Now look at our lives for a minute. Come back to our lives from that story. How many of us have caught ourselves doing the same mistake what we did maybe a week ago, a month ago, or a year ago? Even worse, how many of us have caught ourselves in the same mistake again and again, over and over? Now there is something in this pattern. Pattern is, we do not want to get into the problem, we don't want troubles, but we end up landing there. Why? Because we think we can solve the problem with the same solution with which we came out. We don't think of newer ways of, one, avoiding problems, two, not getting into that kind of a repetitive pattern. And I think today's video is a reminder for all of us that you need to evolve with the changing tunes and times. Yes, because remember this, situation will be presented to you and you may not have control about it, but how we respond to the situation is in absolute control of us. We control our response. And the only way you can kind of be there, be prepared, is when you're conscious of the fact that your response is in your hands. And for that, you need to evolve. You need to change. Now look at the situation around us. This is the time of the year where we are into tax planning, right? And especially those of us who are into working professions, like, people who are salaried, we all look at the same pattern. You scratch your head and say, oh, I should have done this much earlier. Maybe planned my tax liability and paid tax deducted at source through my office in equated installments so that it won't be a burden for Jan, Feb and March months. Even worse, some of us who are into self-employed businesses, we would have not kept the tax liability aside. We would have spent all the income on other things. And now you need to make more money, pay more taxes, but still save some money to pay the previous tax, which is due by March 31st. That is what I'm referring to. I just took an example of paying taxes because that is more relevant, especially with the budget around. But the fact is, we don't want to solve our problems because we want to copy the same solutions. Because somehow, deep inside our heart, we feel that when I could get away last time, I will get away the next time. And that is the problem. That is the mistake. That is where we need to stop and start acting as to, I was lucky last time to get away, but I don't want to be lucky. I want to be in control of my choices. As I said, this video is a reminder for my future self to tell myself that tomorrow's problems cannot be solved with yesterday's solutions. And if you like this video, do share with people who you think will help, or this video will help them. And do me a favor, as everybody asks, I'm asking you to like and to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching CSK Speaks.